Softball season is here, and as part of our big softball preview, I needed to get on a head coach from the Big 12. I'm very excited for the very first time to be welcoming Baylor softball head coach Glenn Moore to the show. Coach Moore, welcome.
Hey, thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
Absolutely. You have had a lot of success in your time at the University of Baylor. A certain level of kind of expectation that you guys have there in Waco for what we should expect from the softball program. I kind of want to start with a look at last year. I mean, kind of a disappointing season. First time since 2010 that Baylor didn't make it to the NCAA tournament. I mean, just second time in your tenure there. How much do you credit that to just being how young this roster really was? Because you guys had one of the youngest rosters in the country last year.
Yeah. Well, I love talking about this because externally it did seem to most people that look at the statistical categories, wins and losses predominantly, as it being a disappointing season. But to be quite honest with you, it was anything but that. There were times during the year that it was disappointing, but we were, as you said, the youngest team I've ever had. So we had a lot of things to overcome then, and we had moments that we looked really young, and then we had moments that we showed great potential and competed against some great teams. And I also think that our strength of schedule was probably a little better than we were given credit for. When you look at the top three finishers in the World Series, 9 of our 23 or 24 losses were against those three teams. So I'm not sure we got the credit for that schedule that we played, although we lost some games that were really that really hurt us when it came to probably the committee's decision on whether or not we deserved to be an NCAA team or not. So I certainly don't blame them. I certainly understand that. But when everything in retrospect, you look back at the losses, the quality losses we had, I think probably our schedule was a little stronger. It grew us into a team that I think matured a lot from that. And like you said earlier, the youth that we had on that team, we were mostly sophomores and freshmen. We had we had 2 seniors playing the same position at first base, and then we had Josie Bauer, who is our only senior this year. We're still young, sophomores and juniors, but more experienced. Was really our only junior that contributed a whole lot last year. So I think the team grew from that season. We had enough great games, the 1-run lead against Oklahoma going into the 7th inning with 2 outs in the 7th inning and nobody on base. And we found a way to lose that one, as young teams do. And then beating Texas really bad in game 2 of that series. We had moments of brilliance to show that we are capable of being a pretty good team.
Yeah, there were definitely some highlights. I mean, that I watched most of that win over Oregon. I thought that was a fantastic game. You had a lot of close calls. You mentioned the game against Oklahoma. You had an 0-2 loss to Oklahoma State. You had plenty of, it felt like opportunities, and it did seem like the youth kind of showed at times last season. Where have you seen the most growth on this roster from the end of last year to now?
Well, I think going through those storms, it will grow you. You'll either give up, cash in, or you'll keep fighting. And I think our decision to go play in the NISC tournament was a big one for us. It was a high risk decision. We knew that going in, and we were able to get in 11 more practices and 4 more competitions, and finished on a winning note with an idea that we could still hit the long ball. I think we hit 8 home runs in the last 4 games, and played really, really well with a depleted roster, if you will. A lot of injuries, and a lot of injuries played a role in where we were and why we were so young. So I think the growth started there, and over the off season that kind of catapulted us into having a great fall. And we brought in some new faces that are making a big difference in this year's team. So expectations are certainly higher.
That the NISC was the National Invitational Softball Championship. I think a good comp for those who don't know, kind of like the NIT or softball version of the NIT. which you talked with former or I guess sorry for former current Baylor men's basketball coach Scott Drew to kind of get some of his advice regarding that NISC trip. What did he kind of tell you about how that could impact this team?
Actually, I talked with quite a few coaches that had been a part of it, and got some mixed feelings about it. Some of the coaches didn't feel that their teams really wanted to be there, and our team really wanted. They enjoyed playing with each other, and we were having a lot of fun, which is a great motivator, and just really wasn't a desire to let the season end right there. So taking that and putting that into the equation with what Coach Drew said, I think really helped us make our decision. And of course, he won the NIT National Basketball Tournament, Invitational Tournament 8 years ago, and won the NCAA tournament a couple of years ago. And he really felt that catapulted his program at the time. But his advice to us was, if the girls are bought into it, you get to play. And there's still a group of athletes out there that love the game and love competition. And we fortunately had those on our roster last year that enjoyed playing. They weren't ready to cash in. Obviously, it was, if your expectations are to go to the NCAAs every year, and that's where ours are, and they should be. Power 5 school, I think, should always be there. But if they're there, then there's going to be you have to swallow your pride a little bit. But they wanted to play, and we just kind of put things behind us and said, hey, let's get better. Let's go enjoy playing together. This is not a trip that we're just going out to go to Disney World. We're going out to try to win this thing and get better. We worked as hard in those 11 practices as we worked all year, probably harder in some instances. Temperatures were up. We sweated a lot more, but we got better. It's kind of like a football team playing in a bowl game. They get better because they get to practice more. We took advantage of that, and have certainly seen the dividends of that in the off season and in the fall.
One of the usual benefits of a young roster is that means you should have a lot of experience returning this season. It seems like you do. For your top 4 RBI getters, 5 of your top 6 are back, with Bauer, Wilson, Benford, Watson being the top 4 among them. I mean, looking at this roster and how much you bring back, where do you think the strengths of it really are?
I think our greatest improvement from last year to this year is on defense, especially up the middle. Our middle infield transfers, Presley Pylon and Amber Tovin, and then at first base, Shaylin Govin, who will add great power. We've tried to make the transition slowly because of the rules changing in the game and the game evolving. I'm a little hard-headed. I love the short game. I love the speed game, slapping and all that. But some of that has been because of rules has been squelched a little bit in our game. You don't see near about as much of it. Sad to me, but the game's evolving, and we've been a little slower to be able to evolve into the more of the power lineup. And I think you're going to see a lot more of that in this year's lineup for us, and especially in the middle of the order. We still have a good bit of speed as well, but defensively, we needed to make some big improvements. We have made those. Offensively, we're going to be better. And we have a freshman pitcher that's going to be really good to add with what we already had returning. That's Riley Crandall. And we have big expectations for her. She's got some special stuff, and Coach Newman will do a great job of developing her. So we got some areas that we're excited about. Will we be, a top 10 team? No, but we're going to be certainly a competitive team. It's very scrappy, and again, a team that goes out and hopefully we don't beat ourselves a whole lot like we did last year. We did that, as I said, as a young team would often do. We did that, and hopefully this year we'll not do that as often, and we'll make teams work hard to beat us.
You mentioned pitching. We can start there. Obviously, the name to know, Aaliyah Benford. She was incredible through the postseason, and kind of got thrust into a starting spot due to Dariana Orme's injury. From what I had seen, and you correct me if this has changed, she's not expected to be 100% by the start of this year. So kind of help break down your pitching staff for me right now. What do we expect for the start of this year?
Yeah, Daria has really come on a lot faster than I thought she would. She's yeah, I don't expect her to be 100%, but she's got some good stuff, and you'll see her quite a bit, probably more than I anticipated this first weekend. So she's just a hard thrower. She's throws harder than anybody we've ever had. Has hit 74 several times. Certainly stays around the 70 mile an hour mark, and that's a lot of wear and tear on the arm. And we had to use her a whole lot last year. So this year, I'm hoping we have more arms in the bullpen that will go longer distances, and we will be able to manage her better than we were able to last year. You mentioned Aaliyah Benford. Aaliyah is as talented as anybody we've ever had in our program on both sides of the plate, and also plays great defense. You'll see her at third base when she's not pitching a lot this year. Swings the bat really well, but she can beat big lineups. She's got the speed at 67, 68 miles an hour, plus she throws an undetectable changeup, or it's just a great she's got great movement. Got to mature a little bit in the circle because that hasn't been a priority for her, but now we're making it a priority, and we'll see how that happens. I think if she's really bought into that and really builds her confidence there, she can give us a chance against some big lineups for sure. Certainly with using her even as a reliever type to Dari with the changes of speeds. I mentioned Riley Crandall, New Mexico Gatorade Player of the Year, played for the Texas Glories, just got some really good stuff. She's a great competitor, great off speed, and obviously everybody takes their bumps and bruises early on in their career, but you'll know her name well before she's done here. And then we have Casey West as kind of a utility player, can do it all, but adds the depth in our bullpen that we need, and a newcomer in Ava Knoll to kind of buy some innings for us and save some pitches for the other 3 and 4.
It really feels like you want to have that one dominant pitcher, as you see, teams that make deep runs have. But to get through a season, I think to Oklahoma State through the back half last year, you really want to have 3 arms you feel confident in. You want your star, but you need a couple more to really provide relief in games to help make a deep run. And it does feel like you guys have what probably far deeper than last year, I would argue, but a really deep pitching collection here for the season.
Yeah, we're still an equivalency sport at a private school at $70,000 a year. So you're not going to have 11 pitchers like baseball would. You're not going to be able to afford that many. So I think this is probably where we'll be, but you're starting to see more and more softball teams look like baseball teams, especially with the different ways we have that they have out there to fund their lineup. So you're going to see, 6, 7, 8 pitchers on squads in the future. Whereas in the past, in 2007, our first run to the World Series here was we had 3 pitchers, through 2 of them. You did have an ace. You didn't really want to go to your number 2 until somebody beat you and put you in a loser's bracket. So you'd see those Moats and those that just stayed in the circle and pitched, 400 or 500 pitches in a series, maybe a little high there in a weekend series, but in the World Series, I'm thinking Moat back in 2007 threw around 800 pitches. So you won't see that in the future, I don't think, as often, because there's a lot more pitchers out there nowadays, and bullpens are being built to be able to use those middle relievers and closers.
Looking at the schedule that you put together, 9 teams from last year's tournament on that schedule, 18 games. You include a rematch against UNLV, who you beat in that NISC. You get a non-conference game against Oklahoma. You get Tennessee on the schedule in the non-conference as well. 3-game kind of Big 12 future preview with Houston. Then, of course, the conference slate that includes Oklahoma, Texas, Oklahoma State, as well as Iowa State, Texas Tech, and Kansas. I mean, what's kind of your philosophy when putting together a non-conference schedule for this team?
My philosophy has always been to try to match it with the talent I have and give our team the best opportunity to have a good seed, hopefully host, get a shot at hosting in the NCAAs, and just pave that path as nice as possible to the World Series. So we have the best chance. A lot of people schedule soft and pad stats early on, and I'm way beyond that in my career. I like competition, and I think you have to play better to get better, and that's kind of what I look at. You never know who you're going to play in some of these tournaments, so you just got to make sure if you get those real low RPI teams in those tournaments that you don't lose those games. We lost one or two of those last year that really hurt us too, and with the NCAAs. You just got to make sure you take care of business when those pop up in tournaments. But we're going to go out after teams that make us better, and you just mentioned them. We have a lot of them before we even get to conference. So it will be the second year in a row to play Oklahoma non-conference. Last year was in Hawaii, and this year they're coming to our tournament. They make us better. They let you know where you are and what you have to work on, and there's no false information there when you're playing Arkansas the first weekend and Oklahoma the second, and going to Tennessee twice. UL Lafayette's coming in here, and so we're going to always try to match up our season with teams that are plenty of teams that are a little bit better than what we think we are, and know where we have to be or get with our team to be the best we can be in postseason. And before that, you want to challenge for Big 12 championships. Do well, seed yourself in the Big 12 tournament. So not to get the cart ahead of the horse. We just want to get this team better, and you don't get better by playing teams you're better than all the time.
No, I agree. I'm looking forward to this schedule you've got. I missed Louisiana game. That should be a lot of fun. That is a very fun softball program to keep an eye on. I just want to talk to you about the Big 12 just for a second. Obviously, Oklahoma, Oklahoma State, Texas. Oklahoma and Texas in the national championship game. Oklahoma State basically one of the last three teams remaining at the end of last season. It doesn't feel like the Big 12 gets the credit it probably deserves for how difficult it is in this conference when you're facing off against those three programs, as well as Iowa State and the job that Jamie Pinkerton does up there in Ames, the job that you do here in Waco. I know Texas Tech with a new head coach again, they're going through some shifting, and Kansas still kind of building up that program there. But the SEC likes to complain when they don't get every single team into the postseason. Meanwhile, the Big 12 last year, just three teams in the NCAA tournament. It doesn't feel to me like the Big 12 gets the respect in college softball that it deserves. I'm curious your views on the conference as a whole.
Well, I've felt that ever since I've been here. I've never felt we've gotten the respect. And hats off to the SEC. They invest a whole lot into their athletics and all their sports, and because of that, they're going to, and they support it. Fans support it at a big big amount. So I certainly don't want to minimize the impact the SEC has on softball as a whole, but I think you're absolutely right. And every year it tends to show up that the Big 12 does really well in postseason compared to the other conferences, many of the other conferences. So it's been a little frustrating. I don't understand. I don't know that anyone really understands RPI and completely how it works. It's a complicated formula, but we just know that we need to have strong strength of schedule, and then we need to win certain games with certain RPIs and can't lose the others. But outside of that, it's just kind of a little bit of a mystery where it starts, who gets the first nod at how do you determine strength of schedule right away, So I think you're right. I appreciate you recognizing that. I think we're going to be pretty strong as a conference this year, and hopefully the tide will start turning. The SEC is good. The Big Ten's good. The ACC, all the Power 5 schools. And then you got a lot of mid-majors that are really good programs as well. It's a great day for softball in this country. It's grown to a high level. But I'm certainly, in the belief that the Big 12 doesn't get overall the respect that it deserves. But hey, we have an opportunity to go out every year and compete against those teams and try to show the committees that we deserve to be there.
I do expect a bounce back year for the Big 12. I can't see just three teams getting into the postseason again. I do want to ask about the future of the Big 12. Obviously, this summer, four new schools will be joining the conference. From a softball standpoint, I believe it's just three new schools with Houston, UCF, and BYU adding softball. Uh, Obviously, UCF hosting a regional last year, getting to supers against Oklahoma where they fell. That is a program that feels like it's on the rise. I'm curious just your thoughts about the three programs coming into the Big 12 and how they will help kind of boost this conference's reputation.
Yeah, we're very excited about those three schools coming in and what they can bring to our conference. All three coming from large markets that will help those schools grow, being in our conference as well. Those programs grow. All three have been very competitive in the past. UCF is an outstanding program. I believe they have maybe the top ranked player in the country right now, and BYU, Coach Eakins does an outstanding job out there, and it's just going to be it's going to be nice, especially this first year. Whenever the next 2 years, whenever Texas, Oklahoma's still in it, it's going to be a great conference. So we're excited to see what happens there. But I think it's going to be those markets are going to help our footprint in recruiting a little bit more as well. We'll probably dip into Florida a little bit more and maybe out west a little bit more as well. So I think you'll see our conference expand. I'm not disappointed at all in the schools we added for our sport.
I know all the focus is on football, but I really do believe the four schools total that have been added really do bolster the Big 12 across multiple sports, including softball and baseball and among others. Coach Moore, you have been fantastic. I really do appreciate your time today. Season starts this weekend. You guys ready to go? Just amped and pumped and ready to finish practice and finally take the mound for the first time?
We really are. The weather's been a little wet here lately, and we're ready to get out to Vegas and enjoy some dry weather and play some softball and see where we are and get better.
Well, again, your first game is you've got two on Friday, one against Southern Utah, one against Weber State at the UNLV tournament. Coach Moore, I just want to say good luck to your team this season. We will obviously be rooting for you and hope to see you in the NCAA tournaments, potentially hosting come this spring.
And I really appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.